The Winter of Red Snow, The Revolutionary War Diary of Abigail Jane Stewart, Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, 1777. Reading 4. December 23rd, 1777, Tuesday. Mrs. Hughes's nephew brought her over for breakfast to check Sally's burn. "It is scabbing nicely," she said. "I love her visits because she bears such interesting news. General Washington himself came to see her. He wants to rent her house to use as a headquarters because it is close to the main crossroads and is at the junction of Valley Creek and the Schuylkill River. He will pay £100 in Pennsylvania currency, quite a sum. So now Mrs. Hughes will move in with the family of her brother-in-law, Colonel William Deweese. General Washington was extremely polite, she told Mama. I said I needed a few extra days to pack, but he said he shan't mind waiting a week if that is what I needed, being a widow and all. My, what a gentleman. And here we are in the middle of a war with England." But the general gave her some grim news as well. Nearly 3,000 soldiers are unfit for duty because they lack shoes and clothing. Papa explained that means 1 man in 4. They are starving because all they have to eat is fire cake, a soggy mess of flour and water. There is not even any salt to cheer them up. Our poor army. December 24th, 1777, Wednesday. Christmas Eve, cold and snowing. Elizabeth and I made the eggnog to set aside for tomorrow's dinner. Mama said it is about time someone in our family wrote down the recipe, so here it is. 1 quart milk, 1 quart cream, 1 dozen eggs, 12 tablespoons of sugar, 1 pint brandy, half pint rye whiskey, quarter pint rum, quarter pint sherry, mix. Store by cool window or in the cellar. Mama baked pies, 3 mince, 4 pumpkin, 4 apple. I whipped cream and eggs for custard. When Mama wasn't looking, I licked the spoon, and as I swallowed the delicious sweetness, I remembered the soldiers. Were we bad to have such food when they have so little? Papa took the wagon to help Mrs. Hughes move her trunks to the Deweese house. Elizabeth and I and 3 Potter girls stayed behind to clean the stairs and floors and the brass kettle that hangs from the crane in the fireplace. While we trimmed candles for the lamps, the Negro arrived with the small leather trunk. He took off his tricorn, bowed, then introduced himself as Billy Lee, Mr. George Washington's personal servant. He said, "Thank you so much, kind ladies." By 1 o'clock the general and 9 more servants had moved in. They shall be warmer now. It is a fine stone house with a view of the river and a large separate kitchen off the entry. Its root cellar is deep and well stocked. It's hard to believe, but already there are huts with smoke drifting out of chimneys. Billy Lee told us the general would not move into a house until his men were sheltered in either tents or cabins. December 25th, 1777, Thursday. Christmas Day. We could not open the front door because the wind had blown snow 2 feet high. Papa poked a stick out and gradually worked an opening wide enough for him to step out. We measured 4 new inches along the fence tail. The Potter family arrived by the sleigh, and Mr. and Mrs. Adams and their little boy who was learning to walk. It is quite a crowd around our table and loud. Mama roasted 4 fat geese and 2 ducks. I found myself with a stomach ache from eggnog and feeling sleepy. We opened gifts in front of the fire. When Sally saw the doll I made her, she hugged it tight and would not share with the other girls. I do not like the scarf Elizabeth knitted me. It is brown and itches my neck. Johnny was very quiet in his cradle all day. Reverend Curry was in time for Papa's fiddle and Mr. Adams' tin whistle. The children made so much noise with spoons on the bench, I was serving up pie, that Mama laughed about her Christmas headache. Before prayers, Reverend Curry told us a Negro soldier died in his tent this morning. He was from Guilford, Connecticut, and belonged to one of the captains. December 26th, 1777, Friday. More snow. Elizabeth spent the day sewing her bounty coat. I've decided to make a hunting shirt for one of the drummer boys. I know not who. It shall be safe to embroider my name because they are too young to marry and too young to care. My thimble fell from my hand and rolled onto the fireplace. Sally was quick with the long spoon and scooped it up out of the ashes for me. Papa came in with ice in his hair and beard, but smiling. He said the soldiers, there are at least 12,000, were serving a Christmas dinner yesterday of roast fowl, turnips, and cabbage, plus a swig of rum each. Because Papa is a cobbler, he rode to camp to offer his help. There are soldiers from all 13 colonies, he said, and all of them need clothes and food. Many, many have no shoes or socks. December 28, 1777, Sunday. It was so cold in church I was grateful Papa brought a tin foot stove to put under our blankets. I do wish it was proper to build fireplaces in a house of worship. The snow was blowing so thick we could see our way home only from the dark fence posts. Bread and sausage for dinner. December 29th, 1777, Monday. Papa took us to the edge of the encampment. Rows of huts made it look like a village. No children are allowed, but I saw some playing near the tents. There are nearly 300 women, Papa said. Some are wives with children, some are sweethearts, but some just like the excitement. Those are women, Papa could hardly say those words, of poor reputation. December 30th, 1777, Tuesday. We cannot see out our windows for the ice. It was too windy to go out, so we stayed busy near the fire all day. Papa is tanning a hide from our neighbor's cow to make shoes, though he was criticized for helping the army. Quakers called themselves the Religious Society of Friends, but they will not be friends with General Washington. I understand not why the religion won't let them have anything to do with war. So far, the only families we know who will share their grain with the soldiers are the Walkers, Potters, and Adamses. Mr. Smith will not share any of his wagons. He has 8, because he does not want the wheels to wear out. I miss the girls at school, not Miss Molly, and I wish I could talk to Ruth. She has a new baby brother, too, and her older sisters are sewing bounty coats like Elizabeth. December 31st, 1777, Wednesday. The Schuylkill is frozen solid. Several of us slid across with snow up to our knees. We went on purpose to the bend near headquarters, hoping to see some of the soldiers up close. In some places the river is clear as a window, and I looked down to see the fish slow and silent. Elizabeth and I wandered into the woods to gather pine cones for kindling. As we were filling our aprons, we heard a voice. We stopped to listen. Ahead, at the edge of the clearing, was a gray horse with a fine saddle on its back. There beside it was an officer kneeling in the snow, his head bowed, his hands folded in prayer. His breath made frost in the cold air. Elizabeth whispered, "That doth look like General Washington." "Yes," I said. "That was the same man we'd seen on the road the day the soldiers marched into Valley Forge." Not wanting to disturb him, we crept away. I felt safer knowing that the commander-in-chief of our army was a man of prayer. We returned to the ice and to the noise of the children playing. When the Fitzgerald boys showed up with the slingshots, I told Sally and left with our pine cones. I am unable to be polite when I see them. Tom especially. He threw icicles like little spears at us as we ran. He's a wretched boy. After supper, Billy Lee came to the house. He stood by the door holding his hat, just long enough to tell us Mr. Washington needs to hire a laundress. He will pay 40 shillings a month. January 1st, 1778, Thursday. Mama asked me to deliver her letter to Mr. Washington, the first thing in the morning. It was a 20-minute walk, and by the time I arrived, the tops of my shoes had been filled with snow, and I was shivering. While I waited inside by the kitchen step, I felt grateful to Elizabeth because she had let me wear her cloak. I've decided I like her scarf. I'm sorry I hated it the first, and I'm relieved I didn't tell her so. The parlor looks different with Mrs. Hughes' cozy things gone. Tables and chairs are arranged in odd places, and there are several inkwells with pens. They look to be crow's feathers. Green felt tablecloths reach to the bare floor. There is one plaited rug by the hearth, where the cat was sleeping. I counted 6 men in uniform, officers it seemed by their buttons and such, and not one paid me any notice. Billy Lee came down the stairs and nodded to me. "Mr. Washington accepts your mother's kind offer. Can you come by this afternoon before 1 o'clock?" "Yes," I said. Now it's past bedtime, and I have never felt so tired. Elizabeth is asleep, so is Sally. At noon, Papa took us in the little sleigh to pick up 2 canvas sacks of laundry. We hauled water until my knees bled from the bucket banging them. The big kettle boiled for hours. We used potato juice for starch. Mama, Elizabeth, Sally, and I dipped with poles, scrubbed, dipped, and then wrung everything out. My hands are raw from lye. Papa strung rope from pegs across the kitchen and main room, even along the stairway where the heat strays. There are so many shirts, stockings, trousers, and I try not to stare, private underthings, hanging overhead. It feels like as if we're in a forest. Fried beef, ham, and cold apple pie for supper. Tomorrow we shall be able to cook in our kettle again. Monday is wash day, so we'll do everything over plus Johnny's nappies and our own family's laundry. I'm too tired and too cold to tell more. January 2nd, 1778, Friday. At sunrise, the mercury said 6 degrees above zero. We walked the cold mile to school, but were turned away because it is now a hospital. I tried to peer in. Smallpox, miss, the soldier told me. Now go home, all of ye. The boys made a carnival out of snowballs and rocks, but the girls and I hurried with Sally to the road. Ruth is cross. The army can take over our little schoolhouse whether we like it or not. I like it, but did not say. She stomped all the way home. About yesterday, New Year's Day, 10 teams of oxen arrived in camp to much noise and surprise. They had come from Philadelphia and were driven by women. The wagons were filled with supplies and 22,000 shirts that had been sewn by patriot ladies. Elizabeth said they were bounty shirts, but I know not. The oxen were slaughtered and cooked. Their stomach parts were boiled with pepper to make pepper pot soup. Mama calls this tripe, but I call it nasty. We saw soldiers standing over the fires using their bayonets as roasting spits. The carcasses are at the edge of the camp, and some of the wagons are being broken apart for firewood. Sally asked Papa, how shall the women drivers get back to Philadelphia without oxen and without wagons? Papa glanced at Mama. Then he said, I know not.